Well, hello again. This is Chad Brochures. I am the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Look at this mop. Uh, well, it's a quarantine hairdo. I don't know if we're trying to bring back, the look from, the 70s band Alabama or maybe the Bee Gees or something. But anyway, okay. It'd be cheaper than all the haircuts, right? Let's just go right into the subject. Something has become really apparent to me lately has been like everyone wants to jump to this like level of where somebody is in an idea. Right? Like immediately, like you hear an idea and then people either say, oh, that's a good or a bad idea. And they don't really look at the evolution of ideas and where those ideas might actually be in that evolutionary ladder. Not all ideas ever get out of the infant stages. Some ideas get followed along for a bit and they end up becoming, they get terminated, if you will. They determined to be a bad idea or ill-founded or immaturely directed or something that we just kind of drop off. But what I really wanted to go over is a way that I utilize or the way that I think whenever I hear things. Now, of course, it's easier whenever you just deem something good, bad, or whatever. It's not or whatever. That's actually a misspeech because I let my mind run and didn't think much about it at the moment. So I'll refrain from that as much as I can. So we'll hear things and it saves us time whenever we put a term on it immediately. If it makes sense, if it lands in some sort of cognitive reasoning that we currently do have, we like to just say, okay, well, that's good. Or that's an idea that does or doesn't make sense, but you're not evaluating the evolution of the idea and what you can extract from it. So the way that I do think is whenever I'm putting the effort into thinking on, like the present thinking of a conversation versus the being present in other places, still present to the person, is that's another interesting piece too, where people say be present. Now, being present has layers as well. What are you present to? Being present to what the person's saying or how they look, being present to the way that you feel in the room, being present to your inner turmoils that you're dealing with. It's better that we come up with more definitive statements like be present to the conversation, be present to whatever it is that you need to put a focus point on. So what I'm getting at in the ideas evolutions, or at least to lay out the idea here, is when somebody gives or says something that sounds unfounded, unreasonable, or not very thought out, can be very well in its conception phase. And it's sometimes you really can sit back and consider, thank you for sharing that. Walk with me in the process of understanding this versus, it doesn't make sense, dismissed, move on. So what I find that is very satisfying for me is to take the former approach, which is, oh yeah, talk me through this. Help me understand it. How did you come to that idea? Where do you want to go with this idea? Does it have any roots, or is it something that just passed through your mind and you felt it was relevant or got excited and wanted to share it? There's so many variables that happen in that infant stage of an idea. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. What can you take out of it? You may actually be able to pull. Apologize about this. No idea. So perfect timing, right? So okay, Google, we know, I already dismissed it. Thank you. Well, looks like somebody's really interested in talking about ideas with me. So in those infant stages, an idea can inspire you for something. Now, if you just sit in that stage of judgment and you don't really do anything with it, it doesn't mean like stop every second of the day and try to evaluate everything. But a lot of great ideas come out of the moment of awareness. The mother of all invention is necessity. Well, somebody else felt it desirable to share it with you. What can you extract out of that? So with this, that would be like the early stages. I don't know. That really doesn't make sense. It's not well put together. but it is something they shared with me, or even your own ideas that you don't share with people. You're like, oh, that's neat. But you don't really have much more than that. Doesn't mean abandon it. It just means that it's in its infant stages. No, how we grow ideas is attach it to something, give it meaning, give it some sort of value that you want it to satisfy. Either, if you're bored, you could want to just be satisfied with getting past boredom, where you just want to move through and be entertained, self-entertained or externally. In this instance, it would be self-entertained. You would be entertaining yourself by that inner thought and that dialogue, and you could dance with the idea by the inner dialogue's idea, like in exchange with the idea. Oh, that's silly, and all kinds of different things that you can do with these in the beginning stages. How we grow it again is going to be attach something to it, something of importance, something of value. Now, as we attach something of importance or value to it, it starts to get this factor of some substance, where when somebody else you hear it from somebody else, you start to hear logic, or you start to hear some sort of structure to it, where you're like, oh, okay. And it may not make sense, but it's enough for you to be invoked to saying, that doesn't really make sense, but I can see that you've got a good idea here, or you've got something of value here. And it doesn't have to be significant value. It's going to pay your mortgage or something like that. It could just be value, like it's worth, choosing that topic over all other topics at this moment. So why go that direction? And obviously it's enough value for you or for that person to share it. Therefore, it's going to have enough value to that person. Now, your assessment of that value is going to be different. It's up to you, however you decide to. My goal with this particular video is to give a moment for people to sit back, breathe, and take in where somebody is in that place, that idea. Now, you may not agree with where the idea is. You may very well take that idea and pilot it in your own direction. Now, you extract what inspires you in it, or what seems to hold some sort of value in that, and move along with it into your own direction. Now, the larger ideas are whenever an idea matures to the point that it actually creates action, can change a world. It can change a world for the individual. It can change a community. It can change the actual physical world. So what most people don't do is they do not consider where ideas are in the evolution. Again, it could just be something that's silly. Like some people watching this can think it's silly, and not take something away from it, not abstract something that might help make some sort of difference in their life. So my goal is to just try to get people to think. I always feel like I am the most of my skills and the things that I've developed over my lifetime, the traits that I utilize, that I draw from, and that my life feels validation or meaning from, is making a difference in how people think, or to at least inspire them to think beyond whatever standard processes that they have. Consider that the next time somebody says, I never looked at it that way, they very well may have just evaluated the idea that you've produced, in which I'm going to say that they did. That they just evaluated the idea you produced, and now it's doing something for them. They've extracted something out of it, and you've had successful communication. That very well may be something that changes their entire life. Now, anyone watching, if you've ever heard somebody say that something you said, did, or demonstrated of some sort, doesn't necessarily always need to be movement. It could be, the lack of movement. Anybody's ever had the experience that changed my life? I have a friend of mine. Her name is Jennifer. We were really good friends back whenever we were in middle school and then into high school. And she lived with my family and I for a short period of time. Again, just friends, but she was going through some hardships with her family. So we hosted her for a bit. And I worked out a lot then, and for various reasons, and I can go into that in another video. But I worked out a lot, but I worked out at home. And she was in my room one day and I was working out, and she was just watching me work out. Wasn't like a love interest type thing for her to me. It was more of, we're just friends and, occupying time. And the next thing I know, it's 10 years later, and she is now getting into professional bodybuilding. she had invited me and a friend of mine to go to a bodybuilding meet in New Orleans. It was a competition, and we had somewhat lost touch for a bit, and the next thing I know, it was like it not only inspired her, she built her life around it. Oh, she got up on stage. She did really well. We had a great time that weekend, her and her sister and my friend and I, my other friend from the area that I lived in, because both her and her sister had moved to New Orleans. We had a great time, but it was something that was really all inspiring to me. I didn't think anything of it. That moment, my major concern and focus when I was working out, the day that the inspiration kicked in, I was only worried, like I was wanting bigger arms. I was wanting, it was all about my self-reflection, because of being a teenager, 16, 16-year-old, I really wanted to just get my body to change so that I could stand out, because I was also an overweight teenager. At that stage, I was losing some of that baby fat. But anyway, it changed her life. And it never really sunk in. At that moment, she didn't really share much. It wasn't until I got into my 20s, and it almost hit me like a semi. I was like, wow, I've never thought that I had such an ability to make a difference in somebody's life like that. And she didn't sit and make it some significant and huge deal. She's like, Chad, I'm involved in this because of you. You inspired me. I'm like, you're in such better shape than I ever got in. It was where I went to, because I went back to that, self-validation place. But overall, though, it really made a difference in her life. That to me it's a beautiful thing. And we don't always know when we do it. And if you do know when you're doing it, it sometimes might change how you're doing it. So, take the time. Wherever the person is in that stage of their idea, you very well may put a piece in that helps them develop it into something even more greater than they expected. Because all ideas, they come from thoughts. I know it sounds redundant, but thought goes to idea, because ideas create action. Thoughts don't always create actions. They have to go through an evolutionary process to create it. So it's where is it at the stage of idea? Because that can start making changes. So with that, I know that this is not really the most in-depth. It's not a college lecture type approach, anything like that. I'm sharing just a mechanism that I use when it comes to thinking and observing the world. If anything, hopefully it does give some insight that might change it for you as well. But in the meantime, please continue, digging deeper and share this video. Put your comments in the comment section. It really is an interesting thing whenever you find out what kind of contribution you have and others also have, and to sit back and look at what that is, what they're offering. So thank you very much for your time. For anybody who made it to the end of the video, I really do appreciate your time and your attention, and I hope that you do take something from this, as just sitting in front of the camera doing what I'm doing is something that I'm taking from it as well. So again, this is Chad Broshears. I'm the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. And until next time, guys, keep thinking.